Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Ninjago video here on the channel. My name is TannerFishies. In today's video, we need to talk about a lot of things surrounding Ninjago Dragons Rising and its future, following, of course, yesterday's San Diego Comic-Con panel, which, again, took place yesterday as of the time of recording this video. And I do have an entire separate video going over pretty much every piece of new information that was revealed at the panel itself. Check that out. I will link it down below in the description. Might want to watch that video before you watch this one if you haven't seen it, because this video will pretty much be a follow-up, not only to that video, but also a follow-up to the panel itself, and I want to talk about the fallout of the Comic-Con panel, because all things considered, following said panel, Ninjago fans are definitely not the happiest because of what the panel ultimately was about, and what was and wasn't announced. Again, leaving a lot of Ninjago fans very upset. There has not been a lot of positivity following the Comic-Con panel. A lot of people are very angry. But why exactly? Well, for starters, a lot of Ninjago fans just found the panel overall to be extremely underwhelming. A lot of the information that was presented at the panel we either already knew thanks to past announcements, or it was just information that wasn't all that exciting to a lot of people. And I will agree, a lot of what we heard was ultimately reiterated from past announcements or things that were already confirmed. For example, we already knew that Dragons Rising Season 4 was in the works. We already knew about the Strike of the Serpentine comic. A lot of the details surrounding that comic that were talked about on the panel were ultimately reiterated from the announcement of the comic itself that took place a few months ago. And plus, a lot of the information that was revealed that was new didn't really make all that much sense, and in a lot of ways was very disappointing to Ninjago fans out there. More on that here momentarily, but ultimately the reason why the panel felt underwhelming was because the next major thing that they could have talked about already leaked. That, of course, being Season 3 Part 2, which, obviously enough, was going to be the focus of the panel originally. According to several rumors coming from the panel itself, and I guess folks that attended, the panel was originally very Season 3 Part 2 focused, but after the leak happened, referring to the massive Season 3 Part 2 leak, where most of the episodes were leaked early a few months ago, the panel organizers scrambled to find things to talk about. And honestly, I would not be surprised if this ends up being true and if that totally was what happened behind the scenes. Remember, this is something that we talked about originally not too long ago, the idea of Season 3 Part 2 obviously being the next big thing for Ninjago, yet the panel can barely advertise it because the majority of people have already seen the Season 3 Part 2 episodes. Why would you advertise something that most people have already seen? Which again goes back to the idea of just how harmful these early leaks can be. They are ruining and actively changing big events that should have been a lot more exciting, but ultimately were not. So like I said, not only was the panel underwhelming because of the leaks, and therefore Ninjago fans are kind of annoyed at the underwhelming panel, a lot of the information that was presented on the panel has also been causing some controversy. For example, we have the idea of Wildfire's origin story not being touched on in Dragons Rising. Apparently Dragons Rising does not consider the Wildfire origin story, her parents, where she came from, to be a priority, and instead it will not be touched on in Dragons Rising at all. That is very strange in my opinion. Wildfire is a very central character to Dragons Rising. Why would you not talk about her origins in Dragons Rising? Surely you can find some room to include Wildfire's origin story and not have it just be this big mystery. Also, this is new. We have not talked about this before. The identity of the administrator was apparently touched on as well at the panel, and apparently the administrator's identity will not be revealed in Dragons Rising. However, there will be more administration focus in Season 4. So we have more administration focus, but the administrator is not going to be revealed? Why even bother teasing that at all then? And that's what a lot of other Ninjago fans are saying too. People are annoyed that Dragons Rising is seemingly setting up all of these big mysteries just to not answer them. Again, Wildfire's origins, not going to be touched on. The administrator, not going to be revealed in Dragons Rising? Seriously? Dragons Rising set these mysteries up. What do you mean Dragons Rising won't follow up on these mysteries? They set them up. What are we doing? Plus, not to mention, the idea of Zarkt being a wolf is very controversial in its own right, and even myself, I'm not like super happy with that reveal, and to a lot of people it very much seems like the folks at the panel just were kind of forced to come up with an answer on the spot, despite, again, seemingly a lot of planning going into the Forbidden Five. So surely you would have some type of idea as to what animals they are, right? Why are we just making stuff up on the spot? Because Zarkt being a wolf doesn't really make much sense, because Noct and Rox are also wolves, and like we talked about in yesterday's video, why not just make the entire squad wolves then? Why do we have 3 wolves, a jackal, and a bug? Just make the entire squad wolves, or again, come up with these answers ahead of time, figure out what animals these characters are supposed to be, because again, it just kind of comes across as no planning was involved in the Forbidden Five and their origins. Are they just here to be pawns for Thunderfang? Do they not have their own individual characters at all? Now, with all of that in mind, I personally don't blame a lot of the people on the panel, of course, that being several writers that work on Ninjago Dragons Rising. I don't blame them. I blame the higher-ups. I blame LEGO just as a company, as a corporation, because again, not saying this is how it is, but it very much feels like this is the case. It feels like LEGO is trying to oversee Ninjago Dragons Rising and just get to the point super quickly. They are not letting Dragons Rising breathe, and as a result, a lot of these mysteries are going nowhere. The writers spent a lot of time planning things out, sure, but maybe LEGO stepped in and changed a lot of those plans, making the planning seem non-existent because LEGO is overseeing the storyline and trying to wrap it up super quick. A common fan theory right now is that Ninjago Dragons Rising behind the scenes was cut short last minute, meaning that, again, a lot of these mysteries are not able to be solved. The writing team that spent a lot of time establishing these mysteries will ultimately never get the chance to answer them because LEGO stepped in and cut the series short. Again, that's just a fan theory, but given the panel, that's very much what it seems like. It seems like something similar to that is going on behind the scenes, and that could explain maybe the Forbidden Five stuff as well. Another rumor suggests, and again, this is just a rumor, that the Forbidden Five, according to the perspective of the writers, were always supposed to be the main villains of Season 3. However, LEGO demanded a giant evil dragon to sell a toy, so the writers were forced to include Thunderfang, and as a result, Thunderfang kind of stomped on all of the development that the Forbidden Five could have had, which might explain why there wasn't a lot of planning going into the Forbidden Five regarding what animals they were, because LEGO took focus away from the Forbidden Five. Again, that's just a rumor, but according to the panel, given what we've seen, I can totally see that being the case, and it just kind of baffles me that a lot of these decisions are being made. I'm not saying that Dragons Rising is going downhill or anything like that, definitely not, because I feel like that's kind of jumping the gun and being a little bit dramatic in my opinion, but I can totally see, again, all of the confusion surrounding the panel just being a big result of corporate meddling by LEGO. And also combine that with the rumors of, again, the panel originally being very Season 3 Part 2 focused, but the panel having to change itself last minute because of the leaks. All of that combined ultimately produces a Ninjago Comic-Con panel that ultimately was very underwhelming and very divisive among Ninjago fans for many, many reasons. Like I said, I think this is definitely going to be one of the biggest controversies in recent memory for Ninjago, and ultimately, like I said, as of right now, the Ninjago community is very much split down the middle, with a lot of people not very happy following the panel for a multitude of reasons that we discussed in today's video. Sorry if this video came across as a little disjointed, rambly, or ranty in some cases. I just have a lot on my mind surrounding this panel, a lot of which I do plan on talking about more in upcoming, more cohesive videos, but as of right now, again, everyone's just kind of underwhelmed and also maybe overwhelmed at the same time. It's hard to say. Leave all of your thoughts down below in the comments. What exactly do you guys think about all of this? How exactly do you feel following the Comic-Con panel for Ninjago Dragons Rising and its future? What exactly do you think about all of that? Leave all of your thoughts down below, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys enjoyed this one, feel free to like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Peace.